I don't ever doubt myself. I can count on no one else, and I do not need your help. I was told to show, not tell, so watch me.
Hello there. Today I have SparkEntity, my editor over on YouTube, which I will hopefully start posting more on. I know it's very early for most. Today we're going to go over some changes to frames that I, and from what I have gathered, many in the community feel are falling behind. Say, they still can work, and they still provide you advantages, but usually they're outclassed entirely by other frames, or what they do isn't worth it in the grand scheme of things. And the first one we're talking about is one that I've gotten a lot of flack before for dissing, and that is Frost. Before we continue, I will go and show you the build I'm using for Frost, well, the two builds. This is the general build. This is Zero Forma with the Catalyst. I feel this build works. Just has decent enough, doesn't go negative on range, but doesn't go uber wide, but also gives enough strength so like you can somewhat use your other abilities, but you still do want to be using Snow Globe a lot. And then this one is, well, as you can probably tell, max power strength to show off some of the other stuff that's available with it, just to show off the higher end of what the frame can do damage wise. Anyways, first off, let's talk about what Frost does. Frost defends a point. That is what Frost does. He has that. That is all Frost is good for. And if we go over here, you can use his wand to break it. I don't know what that does. Let me touch the wedgie so I'm not a total dunce.
It's just to get it out of the way. I don't think it actually does any like AoE damage or anything when it breaks. At least not to
Yeah,
my knowledge. But I haven't seriously played Frost in years, so.
yeah. Placing the slash. Yeah, the tips and tricks page on it. I mean, I guess it's mainly just to do an AoE freeze on enemies, which I guess is nice. But alright, let's talk. So his snow globe is what he does. Let's go over his abilities. So he has his wand, as we saw, that can pop them, but if we go over here and use it on an enemy, you can see that it will freeze them. And an important note is if we do that, it leaves a little area of frozen ground, which just makes it so enemies within that radius get a cold proc, which we all know how good cold is in the current meta.
About as
And
good as
then
magnetic.
I think it's actually worse, honestly, but that's neither here or there. His 2 is that, which, as you can see, it damages the enemies within it and places cold damage on them. And I just have these frozen just so I'm not constantly dying, because I'd rather not have that happen. Then his 3, as we've already seen, is used to defend a point. You can cast it multiple times to give it more health. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me.
It's you can have multiple copies of it.
Yeah,
I think each individual one has its own health.
health. But yeah. So if I'm wrong, just say so in chat, and just like I don't know everything about these frames. Most of what I'm doing off of Frost comes from the wiki and my little playtime with him. And then he has his 4, which is an AoE that freezes a bunch of enemies. And this has good AoE, but I mean, damage-wise, it doesn't really have much. And I think this is the build that has power. No, this isn't the power strength build. Okay. So that's what Frost does. Now then, here, and Spark will be giving his opinions, and you guys in chat can give yours as well. And not Peerage. Spark has never. Spark does not know the changes I'm about to suggest. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for his first ability, so first off, we're going to remove something that I'm sure some of you might not know. The freeze on the enemies has a health threshold. Once this enemy will fall, as you saw, once it fell below 50% of its health, the freeze goes away. So first off, remove that. Physical, it might be on my end just because I have so many things open. And sorry if it is, not much I can really do on that end.
What's up?
There's a bit of stream buffering for some people.
I'm not experiencing it, and I'm recording this at the same time.
Yeah. I'm watching mine since I have it pulled up. Yeah, there's stream delay, but that's normal. Other than that, there's not really anything to note. So I don't know what it is, physical. I'm sorry, but as we were saying, for his one, remove the freeze threshold so an enemy is frozen no matter what for the entire time, instead of just for however long. Oh, is it my audio being quiet? Give me a sec. Is that better? Yeah, so his one, remove freeze threshold, and then for his as well, increase freeze duration to 30 seconds base. And also, important note, the freeze radius is not affected by any ability stuff, so it's not affected by range, strength, or anything. So that little impact, no matter what, will be that large, which I think is stupid and should be increased. So increase freeze to 30 seconds, remove freeze threshold, and increase ability stuff. So there's that. Give me a sec. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
God damn it. We don't need you dying over here on us, Spark.
Well, it's either coronavirus or the flu, so.
I'd prefer it to be the latter and not the former.
Me too, but we'll find out come Monday.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's his one. His two, I would suggest decrease. This is going to sound weird, but we're going to decrease the base damage to. Give me a second, I have to put it up. Decrease the base damage to 525 at max strength, but have it so per enemy it hits, it will gain a damage buff of 0.3s, or in more mathematical terms, the equation for it would be 0.3 parentheses n minus 1 end parentheses, and n is the number of enemies hit. So if we go back to the game, and say I used my 2 on these enemies, as you can see, it hit about 3 of them, so that would gain about a 0.6 times ability strength multiplier. But it allows you to have more scaling because it can hit a good selection of enemies if they're grouped together. Sorry. And then his 3, simply put, increase the. Oh, wait. His 2 has an augment that I want to talk about. Currently, his 2. Give me a second. augment says is that it will leave a frozen trail for 12 seconds that will slow down enemies that come into contact with it. Simply put, if you're going to be using, simply put, for that augment, I say, hey, just make it so they are frozen for 10 seconds, but also make that freeze duration not affected by ability duration. So it's 10 seconds no matter what, because, well, all of, with this change, all of his abilities will be able to freeze very well.
Agreed.
And then for his 3, simply put, increase the base health to 10,000 instead of 5,000, just to make it a lot more, just to make it a tiny bit more tankier. And then for his 3, what I suggest is his 3 also has an augment. Give me a sec, I'll read that off. His 3's augment is, give me a sec, reads enables that enemies that enter have a 50% chance to become frozen solid for 8 seconds. Simply put, makes that a 100% chance. This is a frame all about freezing enemies. I think if you're using an augment that's supposed to freeze enemies, it should be 100%. I think it should be part of the base ability. But his augment already does that, so might as well just put it on his augment instead of his base ability.
Especially if you're going to be losing a mod slot for an augment, you'd want a little bit
Yeah,
more than, 50-50
50.
chance.
Yeah, and then Avalanche, there are a few things. So first off, increase, because Avalanche, for those who are unaware, happens to have a armor strip.
This is something I
Let
was not
me
aware of.
give me a sec. Let me switch to my config C, which doesn't have any mods, and then go to abilities. Its base armor strip is 40%. That is one of the weakest armor strips in the game. It requires you to build way, in my opinion, and way more ability strength than he really should have in a general build. Like, you can use his 4 to DPS in some situations, but usually that's content where the fact that you can DPS with him doesn't really matter. But so for his 4, I suggest increasing the base armor strip to 60%. That way you have to build a good bit of power strength, but you don't need to be building like a frickin' you don't need building to 250% or more ability strength just to have a 100% armor strip.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then we're also going to increase freeze duration to 12 seconds and increase base range to 20 meters and shadow radius to 6 meters, mainly because this, although it is a damage dealing ability, it is mainly focused around, well, freezing the enemies around you in a wide area. Just if we go and see, this build has pretty much no range built on it. I made sure not to go into negative, but like they're frozen and like give me such I have to grab energy. And if we go grab energy and then do this, with a good melee, I'm able to easily clear these people out, as you can see, before the freeze goes away. However, these are only level 50, so like if you're in Steel Path, the validity of being able to kill all the enemies before you get to before they unfreeze isn't really that good, and with his kit he doesn't really have a lot of insurance into being able survive a lot of hits, because like yeah, you have your snow globe, but like you'd have to be casting that like every single movement or so, basically, to have a bit more survivability, and that's not energy efficient at all.
No.
So there's that. So that's Frost's changes. Any thoughts from you, Spark, or you guys in the stream? The stream, if any of you are still watching. Nope.
I definitely think that I've seen people play Frost one of two ways. Either he's a straight up defense build, like you said, defending a point, or they attempt to make him a DPS, you know, like with
Yeah.
his 4 and 2, and it's just not very effective as he is now, at least
I mean,
not anymore.
let's go to a max power, reasonable max power strength build. One that has 309% ability strength. Way more than I think he actually needs, and way more than anybody building him for DPS would do. Let's go and see exactly what this does to a level 50 heavy unit. There. That's what it does.
Yeah,
It,
and I'd also like to point out that to get 309% power strength, you have 55% efficiency. You're already out of energy.
yeah,
And like if you're
that
going
took out maybe a quarter
yeah, if you're
of
going for
their health.
a ability focused DPS frame, you have to have
There's so many better.
yeah, you have to have something in the way of efficiency, you know.
Yeah. Like, what's another? What, like, here, Voucher. I would say Voucher is a ability focused DPS Warframe that is very low in range, generally meta rank change. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So let me clear these bubbles real quick, just so that we can show what I mean. Frost. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So we go to Voucher. I'll show the build I'm using on Voucher. Here it is. I have 260% ability strength and 55% efficiency. And here's the build for the claws, which, yes, she does get a bonus because she can use them. But, like, that's her main DPS and ability. So how you generally run her is you do this, then you hit this, and they're all dead.
Yeah.
And I still have energy to spare
Yeah.
after using two abilities with
Yeah,
55% efficiency.
that's sustainable DPS with an ability
Yeah,
focused frame. Or at least that's how it
yeah,
should look.
yeah. So that's the main problem. Because I do agree that Frost should have two different play styles. Because his kit does feel like that should be his. First one is a more defense oriented with his 3, and then the second one is more offense with his 2 and 4. So, like, you can go do stuff like, for example, you could go do this and then, well, I'm out of energy, but then hit his 4. Let me do maths. But yeah, as I was saying, you go do this, and then you go into the center, freeze, and they're all dead.
In an ideal world.
Like, in general content, just like, I don't think Frost should ever be somebody you're taking for DPS reasons into above level 50 content.
I don't know. Frost, I definitely feel that he fits the niche of CC slash defense.
Yeah. Just like, if, like, even in a defense, like, you could build a bit of ability strength, and then your 4 with the change, like you have good DPS potential with your 2, but you also have good CC and armor reduction with your 4.
Exactly.
And then you have your 3 defending a point, which, yes, is represented by the spawn console. Okay, I like how I can freeze that. Anyways, but let's move on to the next frame. A frame that is very similar to Frost, I actually feel. And that is Nids, and yes, I have a skin on them. Deal with it. But let's spawn some enemies. So Nids has her... Oh, I probably should show off the build I'm using first, shouldn't I? So here's the build. I have max efficiency, good range, good strength, good duration, which is a 20 build, but it still works. What does Nids have? First off, she has her 1, which is a mind control, so I could mind control that person and put damage into them for a few seconds. And then they'd be doing that damage to enemies. Here's the thing. Here. Unpause AI. Let's mind control that target. As you can see, the mind control target did basically nothing, and there. And so with that, like her 1 can mind control target, but by the way, it can only control 1 mind control target at a time. Like you can't continuously cast this just to have an army of mind slaves. And then she has her 2, which is Psychic Bolts, which is an ability that let me spawn them again. Lets out and hits enemies so that they have their armor stripped. By the way, this can hit at max, I think, 6 enemies. And has a range of 60 meters. By the way, this base armor strip is a 60% armor strip on her 2. So that's what I mean when I say Frost needs an improved armor strip on his 4. If you agree with that.
Yeah, agreed.
And then she has an ability that some use. I generally don't use it just because it's not, in my opinion, it's not that good, which is Chaos, which will confuse enemies, and if they were on paused, they have a basically right now they have a 50% chance to be shooting each other instead of me. That is a 50% chance to shoot the enemies, and the problem is these guys are not meant to fight themselves. I'm just going to put it out there.
Like, unpause the AI and demonstrate that.
Yeah. I'm just going to wait for chaos to end. Unpause AI. And I'll even help them out a bit by armor stripping some. Yeah.
But there's not a single one of them firing at you.
Not yet, but they still can shoot me.
Yeah, but they're definitely not interested in even trying right now.
True. And like it is a good CC, but it is finicky CC.
It's definitely. Well, I just want to point out this isn't designed for these enemies to kill themselves. It's just so they leave you alone while you kill them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I also am doing this just to demonstrate that enemies cannot kill each other right now. By the way, Ninja's mind control targets have a bit of a damage boost. I don't know exactly how much it is. Give me a second, and I will check. It's
I don't believe it's anything too significant.
abilities. Her. Oh, no, you don't get a damage boost on her one base. That's on her augment. You have a 4-second time period to put damage into them. So that they can maybe kill their friends. And then her 4 is, well, her 4 is the thing making it so I think she's better than Frost. Her 4 is, well, give me a sec. This. If you look in my top right hand corner, that is the amount of damage this will deal when the ability expires. And allies can also shoot into this when to help boost the damage as long as you do not have the augment on. I'm just gonna let this build up and release. But yeah. Pause AI. That doesn't, I'm just gonna kill enemies, just that doesn't look right. But yeah, so that's what her 4 does. So let's move on to changes. First off, her 1. Simply put, buff mind control AI, also give mind controlled AI targets 10 times damage increase. Because they are meant to deal with our health pool. Enemies are meant to deal with a Tenno's health pools, not an enemy's. The health pool of Tenno, no matter what, are really low compared to any enemy, really.
Mm-hmm.
So they're meant to deal with us, not themselves, meaning that they don't really do damage to each other. So that's where the 10 times damage increase comes from. And now her augment change. First off, let's go over what her current mind control augment is. Her current augment states, controlled target does increased damage by 500%. Remember, you can only have one mind-controlled target at a time. So, for her augment, I say augment reduces base damage increase of an AI to 2 times. However, the original mind control AI can, if an enemy enters with 5-meter radius, which is affected by ability range, will have an instant mind control placed on it, mats of 4 enemies affected at once. These enemies will have the mind control duration on these enemies. The mind control on these enemies is reduced by 50% duration wise, so instead of lasting wrong thing. So instead of lasting in upgrade, instead of lasting for me currently, where's duration? That's wrong ability. Instead of basically lasting 40 seconds, it would only last 20 seconds, but I would have 5 mind-controlled AI that are dealing 2 times damage, meaning which isn't that much damage, but it does give me a bit better in terms of controlling the enemies, which is what Nits is about. And then let's move on to her 2. And her 2 is very simple. Increase base duration to 20 seconds, just so the armor strip lasts a while longer, and you have a bit more time to go in and deal with the enemy, since it can hit up to 60 meters, which is really, really large, by the way. And then for her 3, I say increase base damage at match range. Base range, not damage. Base range at match range to 36 meters. Or is just so if you build up match range, you have a 100 100 meter CC, which I think is a bit ridiculous, but screw it. And this is a more optional one, because her 3 I don't feel needs to be changed too much. Just as we saw, it's good at CCing the enemies anyways. And then her 4 is increase base damage conversion to 0.1%. So like any damage I take, it will be 0.1% of that damage will be converted into damage dealt to enemies. These which allies can shoot into, and then increase the starting damage to 10,000 and have it gain 350 damage per second, reduce range to 16 meters at max range, just so it's not as large of an affecting area, because she's not really meant to DPS enemies, and also with these changes the amount of damage you'll be able to get stored up is actually, if it was at base, you'll be able to get ridiculous amounts, and I do realize that, but she does need it. Because we
Plus,
saw,
if you shorten the range on it, I mean that really balances out the damage that you can do.
yeah,
It's not like a nuke. It's more tactical nuke, you know?
yeah,
So I think that sounds plenty fair.
yeah. And another thing is, we already saw what Nids could do in the meta early in 2020 before Steel Path got changed, so Eximuses don't drop Steel Essence anymore. She was used in combination with Octavia, Rhino, and Aspidula to basically, the Rhino and Octavia would come together and give Nits as much damage as possible. All Nits was on top of a defense point, and the Speedva was there to make enemies take more damage, as well as speed them up so they all got closer together, closer to Nits, and then you would just release and you use that to farm Steel Essence, and that was the most effective farm for Steel Essence. But then, as you know, D changed it so Steel Essence no longer drops from
Somebody
Eximus
snitched.
enemies. Probably. That or D just saw. I mean, I'm just glad they didn't nerf any frames.
Yeah, we know they're quick to do that.
Yeah, just like that composition is still existing within this game. So that's it. Any thoughts?
Nah, I agree.
Hmm. Now
I do
then,
think
let's move.
I will say just in general, I think any ability that is like hit one button, you know, where it's not like a continuous ability that has armor strip, I think the base of that should be 50.
Can I ask why 50?
Because for a lot of the abilities that have an armor strip, well, like you said with Nyx here, the armor strip compared to her range is so low that
Her armor strip is 60% base.
no, I mean the duration versus the range on it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Oh, you mean duration.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Sorry, you said armor strip.
yeah, I know I'm a little bit out of my mind right now, but I think 50% sounds like a fair shake
Yeah,
all the way around. I mean, of course, this wouldn't work with every ability, but I think base
yeah,
50% is pretty fair.
yeah. Just then you have to build a bit more strength than some frames may want to get 100%, but you aren't having to build 250% strength.
Yeah, and ended up with 55% efficiency.
I mean, I guess you could technically build for that without efficiency, but that requires like so much forma and probably even some Umbra forma.
Yeah, it just it becomes a little less feasible for your average
Yeah.
player. You know, I guess I shouldn't
Yeah.
say average for your newer player. You know.
Well, not even newer. Like, I wouldn't be able to put that build on anybody without Blind Rage just because I don't have minus Excalibur because I don't have the Umber Forma to support it.
Yeah, true.
And it's not like I can buy Umber Forma with Blood. I have to go farm, like, it's actually a chore to get Umber Forma, which it should be. Because they're busted, basically. In my opinion, anyways. But let's move on to the next frame so we're not stuck here forever.
Yeah.
Next frame is Vauban. His favorite frame. So, what does Vauban do? Well, first off, he has his wand, which launches out people, which you can have at max 4 of, that go, and, well, they do that. They go and shot people and keep them CC'd, which is really good. So, just because of how little I have to talk about with him, I'm just going to say the changes as I go over the abilities. There's no changes to this ability. It's a good ability.
Agreed. It's one of the
Like,
few
we
times
don't,
where everything is balanced perfectly.
yeah, like, it's not too broken, which it shouldn't be. This is a one ability, but as you saw, that dealt really good. Didn't do good damage, but it made sure they didn't move.
Yeah.
And then another funny thing, these guys are not affected. Like, if I go off a cliff, like if I hit a respawn pit, these guys don't go away. They still stay chugging. And if they enter a nullifier bubble, they also don't go away. If I enter a nullifier, I think if I enter a nullifier, they don't go away either. Let's check. One of the few times nullifiers are going to be brought up. Oh, I was trying to say nullifier instead of nullifier. We'll just have one. Pause AI, simulate. See? He's still in there. He can't shock them, but he's in there. And like, if I go in, he's still up.
Like when
So
if you dropped his bubble, would it go after him then, and would the bubble return?
I'm trying to do this without killing the dude.
Yeah.
Yep, he immediately goes after him. But yeah. And like as you can see, that does really good damage to a non-heavy unit.
Yeah. It can actually kill a lot of the smaller fry, like the butchers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and when it kills an enemy, it also here I'll show this better. Let's do let's have a more let's do 10 corrupted lancers, 10 corrupted lancers, 5 butchers, 3 bombards, and 2 heavy gunners. I feel this is a fair, like more mission realistic
Spattering.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So simulate that. Let's see. Like it's doing good damage to them, and they are more heavy units. You know,
Yeah, they're already
like
below
it's
half
not like
health.
yeah. And then when they die, the charges don't go away when they kill an enemy. They just go find a new person.
Yeah.
Nope, cannot do that.
If this ability was any stronger, I would say that it would be unfair for it not to have a duration.
Yeah, just as you see, it doesn't. I don't even know how to kill them.
I think they've got a certain number of times that they'll latch onto an individual enemy.
I think I just need to switch off of them. Yep, I just need to switch off of him because I don't want them up. So let's talk about his other abilities. We'll just spawn that. His two. First off, we have Tether Toil. It does that. It brings enemies together, which is practically useless because of what his 4 does. I'm sure you agree with that. I mean, it has a good duration.
I don't know. It feels like one of the more trolly uses,
Abilities?
yeah, of it. Because
Yeah.
I had to stifle a laugh when it made a couple of them face plant.
Yeah. It is a funny ability, I'll give you that.
It kind of feels
But
like
like,
this one always felt like D ran out of ideas. They're like
well,
they didn't want
yeah.
to stop at 3. They wanted him to have 4. So, but they had to come up with this one. But like,
Oh,
only because, like you said, based off what his 4 does, having
there's
this
no reason
ability,
to.
yeah, it's overkill, I guess you could say.
Another joke is this is the first one you unlock out of them. And we'll avoid talking about that ability real quick. Vector Pad, another troll ability. You set it down and you go zoom. This is used to troll your teammates. I have seen any Vauban who uses this just launches their teammates off a cliff. You cannot say that is not true.
I really don't know what D intended with this one. I really don't.
Yeah,
I
and
was
then
trying to defend it. I was sitting here thinking like, well, no, I can't. I can't defend this. I don't know what they were
yeah,
planning. I don't know
and
what their
then
thought process was.
Overdriver. Overdriver, there we go. Overdriver, simply put, is something that you can use with your 1, and they will pitch it up. And those guys now have more. The person who picks that up now does more damage. Because, like, I'll switch off of him just so they go away. If we go to abilities, as we can see, Overdriver gives you, with my turned build, a 30% 6% damage increase. Whoop-de frickin' do,
That's
right?
36% you wouldn't have without it.
I mean, yeah, but like, what you'd mainly give this to is a DPS person, and a DPS person isn't going to notice 36% more damage. Because it only affects their weapons and not their ability strength, like something to, let's say, a Rhino.
True, but still,
And now,
I still say any bonus is better than no bonus.
yeah, it's his second most useful ability in this, but let's talk about the ability that you, in my opinion, should really only ever have equipped, Flesh Shadow Orb,
Agreed. It's the only one I really use with him.
because it does that. We'll just let Flesh Shadow. So there's that ability. I want you to try and guess what I'm going to suggest for this ability.
I got nothing.
Remove Tether, Coil, and Overdrive, because Overdrive does. Wait. Sorry, not Overdrive. Remove Tether, Coil, and Vector Pad, because they're useless. Not Overdrive, sorry. That was a mistake on my end.
I I would say don't remove vector pad, but turn it into a speed buff.
Yeah, like a placeable speed buff.
Yeah, that's what I would do with it.
And then for Overdrive here, increase the base damage increase to 35% and also allow it to affect a teammates' ability strength. Like allow it to give teammates extra ability strength just so it is useful in the situations that would it it would come up a lot more, which is increasing the ability strength of a frame that say may want a lot of ability strength but doesn't have the room in their builds to put it. It will allow you to give them more ability strength.
I would say just have it do ability strength because really, like you said, you're not going to notice, 35, 45, maybe not even a 50% damage
Yeah,
increase on your weapon.
unless you're like very into steel path at like survivals and stuff, but I don't think Vauban should really be used in those comps. Sorry, Vauban fans.
Yeah, I can't say anything toward that because I haven't played enough Vauban outside of like defense missions. But
Yeah,
uh,
and if
I
that is
definitely
where he's
think
home.
I definitely think it would be okay if they just swapped out weapon damage with ability strength.
Strength. Yeah.
Yeah,
And now let's talk about his three, also known as the Helminth ability. The Helminth slot, in my opinion. Just
agreed.
because, well, it killed a butcher,
It's just
but
it's so underpowered.
any heavy unit. Like, here, I'm gonna go, because I do have it. Oh, wait, nope, that's my other build. Config C. Yeah, here we go. 309% ability strength. We'll just kill enemies, simulate, and we'll go over to these guys. The corrupted gunner will be. I don't even have enough. I don't have an efficiency. Okay, now then. 309% ability strength. I mean, it killed them eventually, but I'm not sure if that wasn't just because they were out of bounds. Like, I honestly just am not sure on that part. You
Uh,
know?
Go drop one down in the middle of the group.
Well, here's the thing. The middle of the group, it won't hit the heavy units, but I'll
Well, I mean like the middle
simulate.
of the heavy units.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because they went out of bounds.
So like yeah, it she's barely grazed the gunner on your right.
Yeah. I mean, the bombards took a bit more damage,
Yeah, the
but
bombard's at half health. It definitely has a serious fall off because it landed right on the bombard.
yeah. And like, these are only level 50. Like, that's barely above normal levels. That's like 10 minutes into mod survival. So then, suggestion for Vauban. His current base damage on the ability is. Um, Give me a sec. Current base damage on that ability is. I'm think it's like 2,500. Give me a sec. Upgrade. Oh, we're done with this, so I'll just remove that. Yeah, 2,500. Here's my suggestion. Increase base damage to 5,000 at minimum.
Yeah,
Just like then with 300% ability strength, you're at least getting 15k.
yeah. I'd say add more energy cost to it and go with a flat rate. Not a flat rate, but like a starting 10k.
I mean, yeah, increase it so it takes like 100 energy base, like not 100. What's its base energy cost?
75. So raise it to 90 and
I
then
say like raise it to 100 and increase it to 15k, because I honestly don't even think 15k would raise higher level enemies.
no,
And if you're building to this, you're giving up his main use build, which is because you'll be forsaking like duration and efficiency. So like just go balls to the wall and just so like his other abilities you won't be able to use much. So give it 15k so it can do something.
Yeah, this feels like another case of D thinking this sounds cool, but it's
Being
just,
afraid to give it too much.
yeah, it's just really underwhelming.
Like, here's another thing. I don't even think it's worth a new player to get this, because you technically can get it if you did rank one him and if you did rank one in Nightwave. But I honestly would say it's not worth it,
No.
because like a new player won't have the stuff to be able to do the thing.
And like you earlier, I'm probably gonna tick off a lot of Vauban fans, but the only time I ever touch him is when I don't really want to play the game, but I've got some stuff to level up in Hydron.
Yeah, he's the AFK bot,
Yeah,
and that is because of the net stability.
yeah, I'll go into Hydron and throw down some flechette orbs and let them
There.
do the work.
Well, you'll do that, and
Yeah.
then mm,
There is something else I want to point out on this ability. It also sticks to ceilings.
yeah. And like, if we go to, and I will give this ability props, even though I hate it because of my personal vendetta against AFK frames. It is very easy with a basic build to be able, well, do exactly what you're seeing me do. Set down 4 points where this is a oh, well, where this is a vortex. I can set down 4 vortexes very easily. So, you ready? Increase the base damage. My suggestion to fix this ability. Increase base damage to 350.
Doesn't it just do magnetic damage?
It does. Do you want to know how much magnetic damage base?
What, 50?
Yeah,
Yeah.
50 damage per second base. So that's an out from me, dog. And like I've heard Vauban players. Note I mainly talk to one, but he'll say like, "Oh, I use this to DPS." I'm like, and when seeing the 50 magnetic, I'm like, "How do you use this to DPS?" Like, my thought on how he uses it to DPS is he does this.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know.
That's
Um,
that's pretty much what I use the ability for.
yeah. So that's why I say increase it to 350, because then you aren't doing ridiculous damage, but like you aren't solely reliant on giving your weapons.
I honestly forgot it did any damage. Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how little it currently does. Like,
And here's another thing. The main reason I'm suggesting to giving the damage increase to this is to help out the new players who look at this and say, "Ooh, I want." Because we can all agree on the one thing a new player is lacking: damage. They cannot kill reasonable level enemies for us end game players, obviously, pretty much at all. Like I've taken new players into like even series missions, and they're like, "I'm scared of these enemies."
yeah, I've kited a few new players myself, and that's definitely an issue unless they're spending plat. It's
Which no,
yeah, they're
that isn't a new player. That's a person who is ruining the game for themselves. I'm sorry.
that's a lot of them aren't even aware of it yet. Uh, but yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and like so yeah, basic because he's very easy for a new player to get the parts for. So like we do need to start thinking of him as an early game option as well. I mean, offer something nice to a new player, which is lockdown, but a new player isn't going to be able to put on. And if we go to my build, what is a new player here going to be able to put on? Stretch, and maybe a base continuity, and
Yeah,
depending on night. Well, actually, no, we can't even say Nightwave, so they won't even have an aura because,
potentially streamline.
yeah, potentially a streamline, maybe fleeting expertise if they're doing
Yeah, and like
Deimos faults.
augur, those.
Maybe Alter Message,
Yeah,
but yeah, like a new player isn't
but
gonna
this is
have
still a
the.
lot of work. This is a lot of work right here.
This also is one major thing to new player that's endo and credits.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and index and farming
If they have
endo and
indexes.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
you got to get there first.
yeah, that's the main thing. Like, once you get indexes, this becomes a bit more feasible, but even so, like, well, hello there, silly dog. But yeah, even so, it's just, in my opinion, it's not realistic. Like, here, let's go to Tonfitch CN. No, we'll do that later. I'll do that if I seriously do a Vauban video. So next frame. Oh, next frame is honestly what I think is Frost and Vauban's better, even though that's gonna piss off a lot of people.
Oh, here we
Limbo.
go.
This is gonna be such a great video. Okay, let me explain why I feel he is the better. Let's unpause. Simulate. Boom, boom. Here. This dude cannot touch me or anybody in it. That's why Limbo is better, because he does one thing very well that the other guys don't. He makes sure the point is defended. You know?
Yeah,
And like also you can be invulnerable because you can just stay in here infinitely with your passive, which people do hate, and I do understand the reason why. So first let's talk about his passive. Make it so the passive allies have to roll into, because you can roll out of it, but like if you just like if you pass through this as you saw, you're in it. You can't not be in it. And
yeah,
that's
and that's a
that's why I
that's a
feel
very
most people hate him.
that's exactly why a lot of people hate him, and it's like it's a very obvious. Like in all honesty, it's not that hard to hit shift. Like
Yeah.
like
Or whatever your roll button is.
yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, anybody that truly and honestly hates Limbo just because of that, get the stick out of your butt.
Yeah.
Hit the roll button, you'll be fine.
Hit
But
the roll button.
yeah, I do feel that you should have the ability, you should have to, Limbo himself has to, air quotes, roll to get into the void. So it would make sense for us to have to roll into his portal in order to get into the void.
And roll out.
Yeah.
And let's start talking about his changes. His one is I can't show because it's a banish. His one basically allows you to put enemies or teammates in the void. I currently have Pole subsumed because people get angry when you even have banish on your ability loadout, which is stupid, by the way.
Agreed.
So for his one, remove like his one allows you put people into the rift. For his one and his four as well. Increase energy per second gain to 10 energy per second for allies within the rift. Because whenever I mention, oh, by the way, you generate energy within the rift, people are like, no, you don't. I'm like, pay attention. Like, oh, you do. But I feel if you generated 10 energy per second, you'd start realizing, oh, wait, I'm getting energy because of him.
Or even just like 5,
Yeah,
like a noticeable number. Because like you
not
gain it,
2.
yeah, you gain it really quickly, but you know, at least 5, which is over double, or if they wanted to be generous, they could make it 10. I could see how 10 could be a little, maybe a little, well, no,
Yeah.
no, because like, I mean, that's
I mean,
really
Zenurn.
nothing. Yeah,
Spoilers, if you have not completed second stream, do not watch further.
yep,
Just gonna say that, unless you want spoilers. Zenurn. Okay, good, it doesn't show them. But energizing to dash. Max range, you gain 5 energy per second for 30 seconds. And that's very, so yeah, 5 energy. Make it the same as Void Dash.
yeah.
Just has a similar duration in Verse 4. And then his 2 is more niche because it changed for his 2 freezes enemies within inside the rift and freezes gunfire objects up to 300. If it is possible to do it without crashing to the game on most computers, remove that gun, make it so it freezes all gunfire objects, but like if it can't, obviously don't, because that's stupid if it can't. Like don't make it so anybody who plays with a Limbo that doesn't have a top quality PC is gonna crash whenever he uses that ability.
I would say honestly, just to uh, avoid, remove the limit and avoid setting people's computers on fire at the same time, is
By
instead of
making
instead of having projectiles freeze,
Frozen.
just have them vanish.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Just well, that does fit his lore.
yeah,
By the way,
because
in canonically, Limbo is by far the scariest frame in this game. He literally created a different dimension. I don't know who's scarier than a dude who can create an entire dimension.
that's definitely yeah. I was gonna say people would probably have issues with the whole making the projectiles disappear instead thing, but we're talking about a
I don't give
frame
a
that
fuck.
literally controls the rift. Like
Yeah.
Limbo, it's in the name. He,
Wow.
yeah,
Anyways, so his 2, there's that. His 3, any enemy within the rift, it surges them with damage and does, I think, something just give me a sec.
it's hard to keep all this information straight.
Yeah. Well, obviously, especially when it's an ability you don't use. Yeah, it just does damage. Oh no, it forces. Yeah. Basically, it allows you banish more people, and it surges them with rift energy, with rift damage.
Yeah, surge enemies that
Oh
leave the rift
no!
perform a radial banish.
Yeah, also, it doesn't even do damage. You have to kill them yourself. So, like. Okay, so first off, for his base 3, he surge enemies with rift-bound energy that strips 15, 30, 45, and then not bad 60% armor to all enemies within 20, 40, 60, and then 80 meters of Limbo's current end position. And this is any enemy within the rift. I will say that. And then make the armor strip last for 30 seconds, affected viability duration. And yes, that is a bit strong. But also, like you have to spend the time to put the enemies inside the rift, which is going to cost you a bit of energy no matter what. So like your energy pool will become taxed then, just like you would have to use your 4 and then use your 2 and then use your 3. Jimmy, which is a bit of an energy ask. Or you would have to use your 1 and then your 2. Like you would have to put multiple enemies in with your 1 and then use your 3 to strip their armor. So that I feel like the amount of setup I feel makes it justifiable why it does all that. Like you have to set up so much.
Agreed.
And now his augment, which I'm not going to read what his base augment does because it's useless. Limbo 3 augment. Grant allies within range of Rift Surge who are in the Rift 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and then 1% at max range of the armor stripped from enemies. Be simply put, so like you have like make it so the reason why is make it so your teammates want to be in the rift.
Yeah, give them a
Like give
reason to want to be in the rift.
yeah, because if they start gaining armor, anybody who plays Rhino with a Limbo in the party will be like, "Get me in the rift and use your ability now, bitch." Because that will give them a lot more iron skin.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, give me, give me. Which I like. I'm gonna be honest. Mainly that's in there just as a way to help increase Limbo's popularity and another reason is to give allies a reason to be within the rift. Because even if we do increase the energy we gain to 5 energy per second, it's not even going to matter. We already have infinite energy. Because we have energy pizzas, we have Zenurit, we have abilities that refund energy. We just have so many ways of regaining energy very fast that it wouldn't matter too much.
Yeah, one Trinity player
In the
can keep
grand
an
scheme of
entire
things.
squad going.
Yeah. So like it will matter a bit, but it's not going to matter too much, you know.
Yeah, it won't be anything like game breaking.
Yeah. And now let's switch to the first frame I have Forma on. Volt. So, Volt has, as you can see in here, 3 main uses. His shield, which is used in Eidolon hunts to give your major spoiler warnings, to give your Edge Child Amp's damage bonus. That is what he is used for in Eidolon, is to give your amp more damage. And your sniper, I guess, as well, but that's a mild use case. So there's that. Then he has his 4 build, which I'll show, which is mainly used as something within ESL. I'll show that off. I have in power, so I'm just going to play it how I normally do. And then you hit your 4, and bada bing, bada boom. Most things die. If they don't, you just do it again. As you can see, doesn't do too great damage, but it does stun them for a good period of time. Sorry, I'm just trying to clear the enemies before they eviscerate me. So, first off, let's talk about his passive. His passive is, whenever you're moving along with the ground, per, I think it's like, give me a sec, volt. I think it's like 5% every meter you travel or something, and can go up to 1,000. And then his 2 is, well, used to give you and your teammates movement speed and attack speed buff is what his 2 is used for. Let's go switch to the build I mainly use, which is speed. His speed build, which does give you, frankly, a really good amount of speed. But at max, it can go up to. I'm just building up to full charge. It goes up to 1000%. Pause AI, simulate. So, 1000% on your next attack. Let's do a body shot with the Aximati Prime. And I have a match charge and no other buffs. It did kill them, but let's go quickly build up 1000 again real quick. And you'll quickly see, just to show you what it does with the Aximati against Gunner body shot. There you go. 1,000 extra damage. Oh, and another important thing to note is, let's say you're moving along and like you do that. As you saw, your entire charge is now gone. You just lost your entire charge because you missed. So, first off, for his passive, by the way, we will not be suggesting any changes for his 2 or his 3. They are in good states and they have amazing use cases and they are very useful. I'm sure Spark will agree with that.
Yep.
Anyway, so his passive. Change it so instead of gaining extra electric damage, you gain a 0.5% electric damage buff to your next weapon hit on an enemy per meter traveled, make it a match of 100%. Just to, give you a bit more,
Oomph.
yeah, give you a bit more in terms of actual damage. It also makes it so it's based on your weapon. So because I feel Volt in his speed builds is a more weapon focused thing.
Oh, definitely.
Just and his 2 build I feel is his best general build. Just because melee is currently changed. Even so, you're still gaining a movement speed buff, so like you can do that. Like you can actually have good mobility, meaning you can get missions done faster. And now his 4. Well, first his 1. Make it so damage is calculated as at max rank 200n, where n is equal to the number of enemies hit by his 1. Because his 1 does chain to enemies. Can I show that? Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can show that it does. Empower, shoot. Yes, I can. Great. So, his 1. That's how much damage it did to a butcher. But like as you can see, it's changed to enemies.
Yeah, it changed to about 5 others.
Yeah,
It's like a
it
total of
changed.
6.
Yeah, so like you'd be able, so have it be 200 end, so like it's able to do the most damage. Like not most damage, but like make it so you're rewarded for chaining to get making sure your things change to enemies.
Yeah. But also make it. I use it as like CC when I don't have enough energy to use his 4, you know?
I mean, in my opinion, here's its main use case: CC and extra condition overload damage.
Yeah, that's another thing I was fixing to say is like it's a great primer for melee. Like
Because
it's
nobody.
not a useless ability, but it could be better.
Yeah, and another thing that I will just state is Volt 1 is the, out of all the three starter frames, does the least base damage.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I will let, this is compared to Excalibur's one, which also scales off of the melee mods you have equipped, and Man's one, which has a lot better range and can affect many people at once, and any enemy it kills also has a chance, for one, any enemy it kills, for one also has a chance to drop extra energy if it kills an enemy. I bet you didn't know that, or if you did, that's nice.
I actually didn't, but you told me about it like forever ago.
Right?
It's
Sorry.
also for Excalibur. It'd be nice to mention that his ability comes with iframes.
Yeah, and movement,
Yeah,
which Volt doesn't need. By God, he doesn't need movement.
no, God, but still, iframes are yeah. That's just another card in Excalibur's deck.
Yeah. And now his 4. Increase base damage to 2k electric damage. It's currently only at 1k.
Agreed.
And then and make it so its range is affected by duration, like Nova's 4, instead of range, because that way it's better in general builds, because usually in a lot of general, like speed and general builds, you do not build for range a lot of the time.
No,
So like that way in a general build you can use all of it. With these changes you could use all of his abilities, like you could use his 2 to build up a good charge, hit enemies with your 1, use your 4, and bada bing bada boom, they're all dead.
yeah,
Or at least they're stunned for a good enough period of time so you can finish the job off with like any AoE weapon or melee.
agreed.
Okay, now then, let's go talk about Loki. Because, and we are probably going to be moving through these a bit faster. So Loki, his 1 deploys a twin. By the way, this twin has a health associated with it. So change for his twin, his decoy. Remove the health. Just give it only a duration. Just remove the health from it.
Agreed.
And then Loki's 2 turns him invisible and is his namesake. So, his first change to his 2. Yes, I know this is weird that I'm mentioning his 2. No. Yeah, I know. So, technically we're at an hour and 18 minutes on the stream. But his 2, the change for his 2 I'm gonna suggest is gonna sound weird. Grant Loki 5, 10, 15, and then 20% at max range, 20% sprint speed. Okay, and then here's the balancing gadget I'm putting in place for it, because it does need one, I'm going to be honest. Reduce duration to 10 seconds. Base. Like, make it so you're moving faster, but also reduce the duration so it's not too ridiculous. You know,
I don't. I'd be okay with just putting on the one of the
sprint
sprint,
speed.
yeah, one of the sprint Exilius mods or something, as opposed to having it give me a sprint increase. Because I
I
don't think
mean,
I've
fair.
ever had trouble getting around as Loki.
No, he's very maneuverable. I'm just saying that to basically give his 2 more usage just so like he does gain movement. Just it is good, but a problem I found is like in some like he's being beaten out by Wukong because Wukong can move faster than him and be invisible.
Well, invisible until his Cloud Walker ends.
Yeah, but
I actually get super annoyed when people try to use Wukong in spy missions because you're not invisible. You're
no,
invisible
but you
for the
do.
length that you run, but
Yeah, you're
yeah,
not invisible. Yeah, no, I don't think Wukong. I think the two main contenders for best spy frame are Loki and Ivara. Ivara because she has infinite invisibility, Loki because he has good length invisibility, and he doesn't move at snail's pace.
yeah,
And also, you can, with Loki without an augment, still jump and everything. But yeah, that's mainly just a change to his 2. His 3, surprisingly enough, I want to stay as is because it's hilarious. It's a good troll ability. And like, it does have good uses. And in spies, it is actually helpful in some situations. Like, it does allow you bypass some things and make some spy missions faster, surprisingly.
yeah, agreed.
And now his 4. His 4, first off, we're reducing the range to 15 meters at max, and there's a reason why. Because we're giving it an armor strip of 30, 35, 45, and then at max 50% armor and shield reduction. And and by the way, this is affected by ability duration.
Fair enough.
Because I don't think Loki should be building strength. And we
Nah,
don't need to incentivize him to be building strength.
I can't think of any reason he would.
Also, there's a caveat to the armor reduction. The enemy has to be already affected by his disarm for the armor strip to happen.
Interesting.
That way, like I couldn't just go in, use my 4, and call it like here. Let me switch to a build that doesn't have radial javelin as the helmet. That's radial dis. Oh no, that's radial disarm. Okay. Like I could come in. I couldn't just come in, hit this. All of them are now disarmed and have their armor stripped. You know.
Yeah.
I would have to 1 and then 1 and then 2 to get the armor strip. Which I feel makes it a bit more balanced because like you then have to,
Yeah,
like you do have to spam it.
I agree with that, but because the reason I agree with it is because I hate when Warframes come out and they've got like maybe the whole kit is good, but there's one ability that is damn near game breaking, and that is the only ability that people use on that frame.
Yeah.
Like Protea and her 2, I think it is. Is that the cannons, or is that the 3?
I Protea is no I don't feel Protea is a good case for that because she also has Dispensary, which is a more useful helmet ability, but it's still a very good ability. And she also has Grenade Fan, which is either shield gating or good CC and damage.
Oh, I know, but if we're going to talk about all these abilities, and like I've played a lot
Yeah.
of Protea, I find that most of the time I'll end up using her 3. And
Yeah,
like,
her turret.
yeah, I'll end up using her turrets a lot. And like, I don't really like I put Prime Flow on her, and I don't have efficiency on her. Like it's at base, but like I still don't have a lot of energy problems.
Yeah.
Like I find myself forgetting that dispensary exists most of the time.
Yeah.
But in
That's where
survival, defense, exterminate. I can decimate with Protea just using her
Yeah.
turrets.
And
You know,
also, like, since we've talked about it with Helminth, you put Larva on Protea, she is busted because you just Larva the group of enemies, then throw down her turret, and her turret all of a sudden does a lot more damage.
yeah, goes from 0 to 60 in like 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, hi there. So
Yeah. And
like
like, I'm
that
not saying that Protea should be,
nerfed because
nerfed or
she
anything
shouldn't.
like that. Yeah, like, because, yeah, she is kind of a bad example. But there are just some frames that, okay, since Helminth came out, Hildren, Pillage. Pit,
Yeah, the only reason Hildren is good is pillage.
yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. Like, when I heard it from you, that wasn't the first time I've heard it.
Yeah, I
And,
mean,
yeah,
Hildren isn't bad. It's just pillage is the only good ability.
yeah. And,
And like,
well, like, not in my opinion, it's not, but in in the community at large, justifiably so, it is seen that way.
well, I don't think it's a bad ability. It's her only good ability for general content. Her 1 and 4 are useful for like base star charge content. But in my opinion, that doesn't matter, especially with Hildren, because no new player is going to be able to get Hildren without spending a lot of plat.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I'm just tired of seeing perfectly good frames get whittled down to one ability.
Yeah, and another sad thing is D almost killed the reason to use Hildren because they gave people pillage from her.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Like, it's a
I
surprise
haven't
she's still alive.
I haven't seen her get used a lot. I haven't seen many of them out in the wild.
They still get used. Like, surprisingly, she's still used. She's not a Valkyrie situation, at least.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example. Freaking Valkyrie and Warcry.
Yeah.
I
Pretty
mean, her
much
one is hilarious, and I love it.
pretty much that the helmet created more problems than it solved, but I think that's a topic for another video.
Yeah. Um, let's just quickly. I say we just call it here and more talk about more like general balancing stuff. And first off, I want to talk about something we basically have already started talking about, Helminth.
All right, let's get into it.
Helminth is a bad thing, and I hate it mainly because of its nerf in mastery. Because they said this is for experienced players, and then gave it MR8. Sorry, MR8s, you are not experienced in this game. I have seen, and this isn't saying you're bad. It's just saying you're not an experienced player. To put it in perspective, with the stats DE gave, the average MR of a player in Warframe is 10, meaning that you aren't even the MR of an MR8 is not even the MR of the average player MR. So how can we call you experienced then?
I don't even know if I would call an MR10 like too
I
experienced.
I wouldn't say they are either. I think MR15 was fine, but if they wanted to reduce it, maybe MR13. But yeah, that's my first gripe with Helmet. Then another thing which we've talked about before is they just killed frames. Like it's amazing children didn't die.
Yeah, that's really my only problem with Helminth is that this it feels like DE is like we're not going to balance these frames. We're not going to buff and nerf where we need to, but we're going to give you this little band-aid solution at the back of your orbiter that you can feel free to use at any time, and it's going to be another time sink because you got to pump
And
resources into it.
resource.
Yeah, well, I call it a
And that's
general
another
time
thing.
sink because you got to farm those resources to pump it in, and it's a band-aid. And I don't like when companies do that. I don't care who the company is. Like I have a great love for
Yeah.
DE. They've done a lot of good things. Fuck Helmet. This
Yeah.
feels like a lazy move on their part.
And like I do have helmet as people have seen. The main reason I have helmet is so I could put war cry on Excalibur because it's hilarious. I do have other stuff like my most meta thing is I have a larva iron skin um rhino because I like rhino and that's a good thing. But like another thing is like they didn't kill Mirage, but they killed Eclipse because you can give Roar, which gives ability strength and base damage instead of just a possible damage increase. And I've seen so many people defend Eclipse saying, but it gives you a better damage increase. And I'm like, I don't care. I'd rather have a reliable damage increase that also increases my ability strength than a damage increase that I cannot control. Oh, outside of having to know, hey, this area gives me light, well, this area doesn't.
I don't know. That exactly keys into the reason I didn't like it, or I don't like it, is because what's the point of them creating, lore and backstories for all these frames and
And
stuff?
then Helminth.
Yeah, and then just like, oh yeah, you can just plug and play like however you
I'm
see
just
fit.
I'm just glad they didn't allow us to put any ability on them.
Yeah, but the implications of being able to do that at all is just
Yeah, but here,
boggling. But
let's
now I do want to say that, like you've obviously used the helmet. That's fine. I don't have any problem with people that use it. For me personally, I will not be touching it. I don't care if this game becomes completely unplayable if you don't use helmet. I will not touch helmet because
well,
it's a
yeah,
band-aid. It's a band-aid, and I don't like that.
I don't have a match rank Helminth and abilities, but let's go and look at the abilities I have. Defy. This is useful with like Saren. It's a possible use, although I don't recommend it. It's also somewhat useful on Ember, I believe. Empower is, well, Empower, that's used in a lot of builds. Energized munitions. I don't feel this is worth it at all.
It's like
You can disagree.
all of these abilities have use cases. You
I
know,
mean, it does, but like I don't feel it's useful to swap any ability on a frame with energized munitions. Like they're all useful, but here's the thing. Would you rather have would you rather have roar or energized munitions?
I guess it depends on how you want to play. Like if you're a much more weapon-focused player, then energized munitions coupled with, oh, I don't know, any gun there is in the game that has like
Yeah.
a low uh magazine, you know?
Well, low ammo, like somewhat poor ammo autonomy. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I just, but like still, I generally like I don't. It's it's a good ability, don't get me wrong. I don't ever see me using it unless ammo just becomes way too bad, and I've never seen. No, correction. I've heard one person talking about that, but I don't care what that person has to say about this game because a lot of things he said before are dumb, and also I just don't like him when it comes to Warframe discuss more endgame focused discussions.
Some people have overly aggressive opinions with no evidence to back them up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But like
you know who I'm
again,
talking about.
yeah, again, it would just come down to how you wanted to play the game.
I
Because
mean,
like
yeah,
I would love, I mean, because imagine, okay, energized munitions with Hatya Satya on Soma.
I mean, yeah, that would be nice, but
That
I
would be
also,
insane.
I mean, yeah. But also, I generally don't yet like Hatya because you have to do so much to build around it. Even with energized munitions, you still would have to devote 2 mod slots to that build.
Oh, agreed. But still, that would be. I would be
It would
much
be
more.
hilarious.
If I was going to use helmet, I would be much more likely to do that than to use roar,
Yeah.
just because I barely even touch rhino. And like this is really what you're going to find is like there are players that we all play a little bit differently. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't touch
Uh,
rhino. I there's a lot of frames that I don't use that a lot of people prefer to use a lot.
Hence the main one we have in common is simply Excalibur, and that's it, I think.
Yeah, like Excalibur's my boy, and Goss
Yeah.
has really come up in the ranks too. Of course, I have all the frames but Grendel and Korra,
Yeah.
and I do try to keep them in rotation. You
But
know,
like, you play your favorites.
yeah, and like everybody does. We all have our even if you don't think you have a main, you have a main.
Yeah.
You know, you
I
go and
mean,
look at
argue
your
that.
you go and look at your usage on your stats, and you've got a main.
I mean, mine's is a bit weird because it's Rhino, just because Rhino is a favorite of mine. Like, he is one of my more favorite frames, but but he's also good in a lot of situations. Just I love Excalibur. I'm not gonna lie. However, I like bringing a good tool for the job, and Excalibur usually in missions I'm doing is not that tool. I
Yeah,
love him. He's an amazing frame.
that's how I do, keeping frames in rotation, you know.
Yeah,
But like if I'm doing content that's just content, I'm
yeah.
most likely bringing
Excalibur.
yeah, I'm most likely bringing
Excalibur Dross.
yeah, Excal. Um Goss is my Rhino because of his two.
Yeah,
Like that's the frame that like I use him in Index, I use him in, you know, heavy survivals, defense
yeah.
missions. Yeah.
I don't use Rhino in survivals because uh, usually I'm playing with people. Usually, and this has started falling off recently ever since I've joined this clan, the clan I'm currently in, and um stuff. But like, I'll usually be the one as Netros in survivals, because he's a good frame. And okay, let's go back to talking about Helmet. Here's the thing. They gave some frames the short end of the stick. Just like, why would you use, I don't know, Volt's helmet ability, which is shock? Or why would you use Necros's, which is terrify? Or why would you use Frost, which is
Speaking of Terrify,
Ice Wave? What do you mean?
your Necros
Speaking of.
didn't have a head.
Oh yeah, this happens. He's headless. He's my headless boy. I don't know why that's happened.
That's been a glitch for a while now.
Yeah, it's hilarious because it's on Necros. Like, it's so fitting. And like, why would you use decoy? Why would you use um?
Yeah, and yeah, this is you're hitting on my problem with Helmet. Is that you wouldn't use
Yeah,
those abilities. You're going to switch them out for something else. You know, like you're going to use something else. And but like
yeah.
there's no reason why DE. But the problem with DE is they're always chasing the new player experience because new
Which they
players are
are
what
their
keep
money
the
makers.
yeah, they keep the game alive. Um
But here's the thing. I've In recent years, it's become so much easier and so much quicker for new players to be able to get to where, like, more play, like, especially with Helminth, like, Helminth is a new player focused system and is also a major drive for money in some players' eyes because they want every single thing and they're too lazy or they're not good enough to go and just deal with farming every single frame. Yes, I called you out, deal with it. Not you, I'm talking to people who do that because
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care.
I mean, agreed. Like, uh, that's definitely something that, well, it's the new players. You know, new players are more likely to spend money in this game
Yeah,
because they don't know the most productive ways or the easiest ways,
to
uh,
farm plat.
or to farm anything, resources,
Yeah,
platinum, frames. So of course they're gonna spend money, and like I get it, this is a business. They've got to make money. But
yeah.
I don't know, the helmet thing it isn't even about money that bothers me. It comes right down to there's no reason why DE couldn't fix these problems with these frames that are falling behind in the meta and in power in general, except for the fact that they're chasing the new player experience.
I mean, hell, let's go look. Okay, so let's go look at my use cases. Okay, I'm an experienced player, but let's go look at my usage of frames we talked about. First off, let's go and see how much I've used Frost. I have used him for 0.3% of my playtime,
Yeah, like
and
how many hours do you have in the game? Just to put that into
currently
perspective.
I have 675 hours in this game,
Okay,
and
so
0.3% of it is on
yeah.
Frost. And what's another frame we talked about? Um, Ninja of Atlas.
We talked about Valkyr.
We didn't talk about changes for Vautier. We talked about her in terms of Frost for DPS, but we didn't talk about changes.
Oh, you're talking about ones okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
Nint.
Frost, Loki,
We talked
Vauban,
about Nint, who I have
Nyx.
0.7%.
Yeah.
I have 0.7% on Nint. Loki, I have 1.3. 1.3 plus, so about, we'll say 4-ish%.
Yeah. Well, he's the spy frame, so like that's the go-to for people because of
Yeah.
his two.
And then Vauban. Where is Vauban?
Was it?
Vauban I've used 0.2%.
You just recently got Vauban though, right?
Yeah, I've got in him recently, and the main reason I've been using him is I actually didn't know how I didn't want to talk about Vauban because like I didn't know what his abilities did in depth and I didn't know like how he played well. Like I
Vauban's
didn't know
quick to
what
pick up.
yeah, he's quick because he's lazy.
Yeah. But like that just puts the whole
But
Frost thing into perspective because you've had Frost for a good while, and he's only got what point
1%
point one zero point one
percent.
percent higher. Yeah, and like
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people out there that use Frost like I use Xcal,
Yeah.
but
And
that's why I'm mad about Helminth is that rather than fixing these
the
frames that
frames.
people love that are falling behind, they've spit out this garbage band-aid system.
That doesn't fit the bad frames. Just like I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but there's nothing you can put on Helminth with Frost to make him a better defense frame than Dara, Nitz, or Limbo.
yeah. It's just a band-aid system, and it's not all encompassing either. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's using crazy
So
glue on a cracked dam, and it might hold for a
it's
bit.
gonna break.
Yeah, it's gonna break eventually. And they just
Yeah,
keep
but
pumping out new frames and all these new systems and stuff. They keep chugging along forward, and they're not taking the time to fix all these little glitches and problems that they have, and that shit's gonna build up. You
And
mark
another
you
thing
mark my
with
words,
their
it's gonna build up, and it's gonna hurt them in the long run.
another thing that hurts them is they don't generally D's design principle, in my opinion, is not to increase the viability and usage of the things that aren't working. It's mainly to decrease the viability of the things that are working. Because let's Cora, perfect example. Cora was nowhere near as overpowered as she, as the sort of, with how bad of a nerf she got, how the got nerfed Cora. Like, she wasn't that overpowered. Yeah, she was a good damage dealer and all, but like other frames could do that, and yet they haven't touched. I know you're not gonna like. I know people are not going to like this. They have not touched Octavia at all. And any person I've talked with can confirm that Octavia is by far the best frame in the game.
Oh yeah, she's her power is insane if
Yeah, her
used
power is
properly.
you go AFK.
Yeah.
And like she's not gonna get nerfed anytime soon because of this shit stain. Although I am happy that this happened because it means more people are gonna be playing her.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Octavia Primes just everywhere. Survival, exterminate, defense, sabotage missions. I
Spy.
Yeah, I kid you not.
I've seen
She's everywhere.
because she's so good.
Yeah.
Like, and mark my words, after Octavia Prime's Access comes out, pretty shortly after, I'm going to say she's gonna start seeing D's gonna start talking about possibly some nerfs. And another thing that they recently unveiled in their earliest dev stream, it was a good dev. Well, they talked about the weapon balance, and they said they were going to be buffing firearms. However, they also said they were going to be nerfing melee, not just buffing firearms.
Yeah, it was gonna be, yeah, they said it was gonna be a 90-10. Like 90% buff to
Primaries and
firearms,
weapons.
10% nerf to weapons.
Yeah, melee.
Yeah, melee.
And here's the thing. I don't think melee needs any nerfs. Like, yeah, is it overpowered? Yes, it is, but it's also overpowered because they don't they don't really balance these. Like, if they give mons similar to what like melee has to primaries and secondaries, bada bing, bada boom, problem solved.
Yep.
Like, tell me giving, and it's not even like really hard to do. It's simply like just blood, giving people stuff like Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds for primaries and secondaries.
Yeah.
Really,
Just and
maybe
yeah, and
increase.
that's what they talked about was giving them scaling mods.
Yeah, like do that and bada bing, bada boom, weapons are used. Like the meta no longer is. I'll simulate what the meta is. Your favorite frame, this, and whatever melee you want. Generally, for me, it's going to be this or this. But yeah, that's basically what it is this is the loadout you use. Your favorite frame, nuke core, and whatever melee you want is the general comp loadout in most missions. If you're trying and like if you're trying to do it most effectively. And the reason I say any frame is there are frames that are better at certain things, but in my opinion, most of the time, if you have new core and Cronin, as long as you can survive as the frame you're playing, you'll be fine.
Yep, slap healing return on your melee weapon.
Not even healing return, just like slap adaptation and rolling guard on your frame. You'll be killing things fast enough anyways.
Or just play Trinity, then you'll never die.
Yeah, or Wisp, or Rhino,
Yeah.
or frickin' a ton of frames.
Yeah, any invul frame or any frame with healing.
Yeah.
It's like, but I think the reason the reason they're giving melee a nerf, and a lot of it
Is to
is to
make
do
people
with
happy.
mod synergy. You know, like arcanes and mods and other mods like
Yeah.
synergize a bit
It,
too well. Um, but like
yeah.
they released Steel Path, which is a fucking joke,
Oh, you
and
mean easy mode?
yeah, they released Steel Path, which is a joke. You know, it's just bullet sponge enemies, and
Yeah.
they actually want to turn that into a challenge. So I've been expecting a melee nerf for a while now. I was not expecting to get a gun buff though. I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be nerf across the board and a big middle finger to all of us.
I mean, I think that the weapon balance change is simply a people pleaser.
Oh yeah, well that's what D's about, you know. Which I mean,
Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, keep as much of your fan base happy as you can. Like I know I'm coming down hard on D, but that's just because I know they can do better, and I want them to
yeah.
do better. This is a great game they've put together. It's a great game they're working on, and I know they can do better.
And another thing, like with what we talked about here, I don't want any frame to be nerfed. Like, I am someone who would rather have every frame be like in solid B plus to A plus territory and rather than, frickin' where we have the good few and then the bad.
Yeah,
And if you're wanting to be effective, you touch the good few, not the bad,
yeah,
not how it is. I'd rather it be like, oh, you want to do a defense? All right, play whatever you want. If you want to be effective, here are like here you want to either play Frost, Gara, uh, Limbo, Nits, Atlas, Octavia, any of those. And I know me saying the Octavia needs a nerf is a bit counterintuitive to the point I was just trying to convey, but like with Octavia and the current state that she is, there is no way to,
there's no way to
without,
balance
uh,
around her.
it's not that there's no way to balance around her, there's no way to balance around her that D would do,
Yeah, because it's like it's either you bring other frames up to her level or you bring her
which
down
is
a notch or
not what
two.
we want.
Yeah, I know.
It's also a lot easier to bring the frame down than bring like every other frame up.
Oh yeah, just like it was easier to develop helmets than it was to actually give any frames, you know, the
Yeah,
buff they solely deserve. Which is why
yeah.
I'm so disappointed in that system.
I mean, and another thing about like new frame releases, I feel a lot of those is a probably the one of the weakest newer frames we've gotten in recent years. Just like mainly because he doesn't synergize with any of the stuff we're wanting.
I don't know.
And
He
here's the
feels pretty balanced to me, which is
it's
weird
not
because usually when a frame comes out, you're right, they are like super overpowered.
well, it's not even like he's balanced. It's his four is a very good thing, but it's only useful like its actual range stat isn't properly is more of an illusion than what it is because its main damage comes from people who are affected by like your other abilities, but those have either only go in one cone shaped way or like aren't nearly as wide reaching as your four, so like a lot of that range is basically unused.
True.
So like his 4, I'm not going to say is bad, but his 4 doesn't, and his 4 doesn't get to be as useful as its stats on the card would seem. Because its stats on the cards are perfect. Like, I minus the duration, I think that should be lower, but that's personal. But like all the other stats and how it works, like it gaining damage off of enemies who have statuses on them, is, in my opinion, totally fair. And like it's not overpowered, but it's good damage, and like it's easy to benefit from. The problem is the range at which it says you can use it and the range at which you can get that damage buff easily are two different things, and they are two majorly different things. Just like, here, let's go look at Lavos. Lavos. His 4 base has a range or radius, because it fires in a circle of 15 meters. His 2 has a radius of 4 meters, which is the explosive around him, which does the status proccing. Meaning that his 2 has a less than a third of the radius that his 4 does. And his 3 can reach the same, can do a lot of the same thing as his 1, like can reach as far as his 4 can, but it can only do that in one area, and generally you want to save using your 3 until after you used your 4 to reduce the duration of your 4. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like his kit idea is good. It's just the implementation isn't there.
I don't know. I haven't had any complaints about it. But
Yeah,
I will say, I haven't taken Lavos into like super high end content, so I probably just haven't experienced the fall off there yet.
yeah. And another thing is, I will say this, Lavos' survivability is amazing.
Oh yeah, he's pretty tanky, and then lifesteal on his 1 is pretty good.
Yeah, like he can survive. It's just his main ability that his kit synergizes around doesn't. The synergy gets sort of disrupted because that radius, unless you're using something like the Cedo, that radius is not useful, you know?
Yeah.
Like the radius works and all, but it's not going to do you any favors.
Yeah, like my build is definitely more range, power, strength. That is one thing that needs to be noted is you don't have to worry about energy at all with him. So like, you don't have to worry about streamline or flow or which
Actually,
opens up a
actually,
lot
you
of
sort of do.
slots.
Oh, actually, his threes, the amount at which the duration is reduced, boost is based on your efficiency
I
for
still
his 3.
My efficiency is still sitting on 100, and like a 1 second
Yeah,
cooldown is plenty. Because like
yeah, you don't.
even if you raise his efficiency, it only goes up by like 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, I'm not saying you need to have more than 100%, but I'm saying you don't want to go negative in it, you know?
I very rarely let any stats fall into the negative
Yeah,
unless absolutely necessary.
fair. But yeah, like he's a good frame, and I feel that he does have a lot of usefulness. It's just I feel due to the ranges that his support abilities have, they don't allow you to have they don't allow you to have that such widespread damage capability that his 4 should rightfully have. Like, simply put, if his 2 had the same, like, let's quickly talk about how to fix Lavos. I have not played Lavos, as you can see, real quick. How to fix Lavos in my eyes. Make his explosive radius on his 2 the same as his range, the radius of his 4. Just that way they can synergize together. That's it, basically.
Well, it's like with his 2, that would be kind of difficult to deal with because you would have to set it up to where the enemies are going to walk through the goo, you know, because it sends you rocketing off in a straight line.
I mean, yeah, but you can always just hit it and then unhit it. Like, you can just go hit the ability, then unhit it to not go rocketing.
Oh, I know, but it would still require some setup. And it's
It
like I
would
said,
require.
I haven't had any trouble with, and the highest enemies I think I've fought with Lavos have been like 60 to 70.
Yeah, like for base content, I'm not going to say he's bad because he isn't, but I feel he'll fall off if you try to use him in Steel Path due to that downside.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Like I said, I haven't taken him in. I haven't taken him in Steel Path yet.
yeah, I could be wrong because, well, I don't know everything.
I'll test it and get back to you.
Yeah, and I generally don't want, and I generally refuse to get Lavos for a while, just because of what they did to him that I'm upset
Like
by.
I want to disagree with you, but I haven't had enough playtime with Lavos to actually disagree with you. So I'll have to test
Yeah,
that and then get back with you.
I'm gonna stop streaming, so adios, people. Thank you for joining in, thank you for joining in, and see y'all next time. Oh, there we go.
And I guess this would be where we say goodbye to everybody on YouTube as well.
I mean, yeah. Thank you guys for joining, and well, catch y'all next time.
Yeah, we'll catch y'all later.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, and if you agree or disagree with any of the things we've brought up today, be sure to let us know down in the comments.
Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon.